Welcome in, my YouTube friends.
Every morning I rise with grace, leaving yesterday's weight in its place. Step by step, I'm learning slow. This healing's a journey and I'm letting it show. No more chasing numbers on the scale. I'm chasing peace that'll never fail. Faith in motion, joy and strive. I'm living whole from the inside. I'm finding my sweet, healthy life. Mind, body, spirit aligned. So right, grateful heart, my daily life. This is my sweet, healthy life. Small wind shining like a crown. When I fall, I don't stay down. Water, sunlight, praise, and rest. I feed my soul with what is best. I honor, pace, and trust the plan. Grace is carried where I stand. Breath by breath, I testify. Strength was growing all the time, and I'm finding my sweet, healthy life. Mind, body, spirit aligned. So right, grateful heart, my daily life. This is my sweet, healthy life. Community beside me, we rise as one. Under grace, our work's never done. Love and laughter, healing and song. We've been sweet and strong all along. Finding my sweet, healthy life. Spirit alive, so right up high, we shine our light. This is our sweet,
Yes.
so right, we shine our light. This is our sweet, healthy life.
Power on.
Hello. Welcome in. Thanks for coming, Felicia Marie Beats. How are you doing today? I hope you're doing well. Hello. Just a moment looking. Okay. So I want to come in tonight. This is what this may be what my fourth live this week. I want to say real busy today, very busy day today, and so I came in a little later than normal. Yep, but I want to show up. So I want to come in and talk about insulin resistance versus insulin sensitivity, and why it matters for type 2 diabetes, or type 2 diabetics, and weight loss. So I'm gonna get right to it. Just want to say hello to the Sweet Life Squad. See who want to come in today to be with me for a little bit. And if no one else comes in, I do really thank you for coming in, Felicia Marie B. And I wanted to, like I said, get to talk about this subject. Very important subject. I know, a lot of people do suffer from insulin resistance, and some suffer from diabetes. And so we're trying to get our lives back healthier. So one way, and this is, of course, Kurious and Kim again tonight, and one way we can do that is to just understand what insulin resistance is, and also, versus the insulin sensitivity, and how it, how it matters when it comes to type 2 diabetes versus weight loss. Okay. Since we are a better health community. So, yes. Hello, Mia. How are you doing? Thanks for coming in tonight. Hello, Miss Linda. How are you doing? Thanks for coming in tonight. She said, "Good evening, Sweet Life Squad." Everybody's saying. Mia says, "Kim J, what does insulin resistance mean?" Okay, and so we're gonna get into that. Thanks for asking that. All right, so I'm gonna get right on into it. All right, so first of all, just understanding, when it comes to insulin resistance, and let me see. I'm gonna go in. I pulled some stuff up just to kind of talk about a little bit more for you to understand. So, just one moment. Get back to my notes. So, when it comes to insulin resistance, think of it as a key that unlocks the cells for sugar fuel to enter. Okay, the sugar is a fuel, so it's a key that's going to unlock your cells that we have. The body has cells, and of course, everybody knows that from science when we was in school. And so the cells has to respond to that, right? And so it should respond quickly, needing little insulin to manage blood sugars efficiently. Okay, but that's insulin sensitivity. Sorry, and then insulin resistance. That's not good, right? So insulin sensitive is healthy, but resistance is not good. Okay, that's problematic. And the key, which is the insulin, doesn't work well when there's insulin resistance involved. The door stays locked. So you have your key, you have your door, and for some reason that key is not opening that door. Okay, so insulin again is the key, all right, so that you can unlock your door. And when you're insulin sensitive, you can get that door unlocked. Okay, the door unlocks easy, but if you are insulin resistant, that key is not opening that door that needs to be unlocked. Okay, so again, the key, which is the insulin, doesn't work well. The door stays locked. Cells refuse sugar, so sugar builds up in the body. So instead of it going where it's supposed to go, it's going in different places in the body. Okay, which can wreak havoc on our bodies. Okay, so the pancreas pumps out extra insulin to force the doors open, leading to blood or high blood insulin levels. Okay, so that's pretty much what's going on when it comes to you being insulin sensitive versus being insulin resistant. Okay, and then when it comes to obese patients, we're talking, if you have insulin resistance, it's excess fat, particularly around the organs, which is your visceral fat. You've heard of visceral fat before. Okay, and it releases substances that disrupts insulin's ability to work. About 70% of obese individuals have insulin resistance. All right, and again, like I said, it's problematic. Everything that you eat should be able to go into your body, you digest it properly and come out, through either, number one or number two. So that'd be so gross. All right. It, the body takes what it needs to take, and then the rest of it is released out of the body. Okay. So when it comes to obese patients, excess fat, like I said, particularly around the organs, the visceral fat releases substances that disrupt insulin's ability to work. About 70% of obese individuals have insulin resistance. Insulin sensitivity, however, is rare when it comes to obesity, known as metabolically healthy obesity. That's what they call it. All right. Some individuals are obese but have high insulin sensitivity, meaning their fat storage is not causing high inflammation or high insulin resistance. So, insulin resistance is a core driver it is type 2 diabetes when it comes to type 2 diabetes patients. Okay. So, for instance, me, I have type 2 diabetes. So, type 2 diabetes is essentially the end stage of long term insulin resistance. All right. So, we've had insulin, we have, went throughout our lives, and at some point we were insulin sensitive. But unfortunately, after so long, because that key was not opening that door, and the sugar kind of start spreading different places where it was not supposed to go because it could not go in the door that it needed to so that it can filter out properly. We became insulin resistant, and over time it caused us to become you know diabetic. Okay, so just understanding that a little bit is what I wanted you all to understand tonight, just to go over that. And um and that's what they call the end stage of long-term insulin resistance, what I was reading to you earlier. All right, so progression. When insulin resistance lasts years, the pancreas beta cells eventually wear out and cannot produce enough extra insulin to overcome the resistance. Okay, so once the pancreas fails to keep up, blood sugar rises, which results into type 2 diabetes. So again, that key is not opening that door. The key was the insulin that should open that door. So, the sugar can be digested properly. And so, therefore, with that being said, you know, it's not going where it's supposed to be. Things are not happening like God intended for it to happen. So, therefore, blood sugar rises because there's no insulin to fight, or to break down the sugars that we have in our bodies. And so, therefore, from the food or from the drinks. And so, therefore, some of us become type 2 diabetic. Okay. So, for as management is concerned, improving sensitivity, the way you do that is through diet, through exercise, through weight loss. And those things are critical or crucial, to help reduce the diabetes that some of it has or the risk of it. Okay. Because, so just to let you know, for those who, and you don't have to be an obese person, right? But I'm just, I'm kind of talking, because a lot of people that follow me, they're, right now at least, they are or have been obese. Okay. Or, they have type 2 diabetes. So just understanding, when it comes to insulin resistance and insulin sensitivity, we want to be insulin sensitive. And so, another thing it says is that, the key differences, which is a summary that they've given me, is, and this is the research, when I look, like Google on a website. So it says, when it comes to insulin sensitivity versus insulin resistance, cell response is high in efficiency. So it's working right when you're insulin sensitive. But when you're insulin resistance, there's low efficiency. So they're not working properly. They're ignoring the insulin. The cells are. Okay. If you're insulin sensitive, then the cells are, actually doing what they're supposed to do. They're opening up easily so that, the body can, do what they need to do with the sugars. And, then the rest of it goes out, into your, just out the body, I should say. All right. So blood insulin, when it comes to sensitivity, you have normal or low, blood insulin levels. When it comes to you being insulin resistance, you have high blood insulin levels. So your pancreas is overworked. All right. And then when it comes to blood sugar, normal, stable when you're insulin sensitive. Okay. So your blood sugars are more stable. It's not all over the place, going up too high, spiking up high, dropping too low, and things of that nature. All right. It is normal or considered stable. But when you're insulin resistance, you can have those spikes up, go down, and things of that nature. All right. So a lot of times we find out at some point in life, we become, if you have insulin resistance, you become pre-diabetic or have pre-diabetes. And then some people, to the point where they've had it for so long, end up developing type 2 diabetes. All right. Now, and that's because of blood sugars, being out of whack. All right. So then obesity risks. Okay, when you're insulin sensitive, there's a low or moderate risk. Okay, but if you are insulin resistant, there's a high risk. Okay, of being insulin resistant if you're obese. All right, and then type 2 diabetes status, usually not diabetic. Insulin sensitivity is not normal, for people that are diabetic, because we have again become insulin resistant over time. And then once we got, to that point where it's just too much, then that's when, we end up getting diagnoses of having type 2 diabetes. So that's major cause of type 2 diabetes is what it's saying. All right. So um, with that being said, that's what I found, in my research. But then I also, of course, I went to my chat, I went to the chat, right? And tried to find out what he said about it after, doing, giving my blurb about, this subject, and, giving my information about the subject that I know about insulin sensitivity. And, he came up with this information for me to kind of share with you also. All right. So, step by step, what happens when you eat carbs? And I may talk a little bit more, just like I was saying, what I found out when I researched, on the website, but just to go back over that. All right. So, and it's going to also be a little bit more. So, bear with me. All right. You eat carbs, right? This is step by step now. Number one, you eat carbs, or we eat carbs, right? The carbs are considered, like, for instance, bread, rice, fruits, pasta, sugar. All of those are carbs. All right. And then eventually, at some point in your body, starting from your tongue, the saliva that's on your tongue, starting from there downward, okay, into your digestion system, and hopefully at some point out your body. All right. Number two, digestion breaks carbs into glucose. Your stomach and intestines break carbs down into glucose and releases it into your bloodstreams. Okay? It releases it into your bloodstream. Number three, blood sugars rises. That glucose floating in your blood is what we call blood sugar. Okay? Number four, insulin gets released. Insulin acts like a key. What I was saying earlier, its job is to open the doors of your muscle, liver, and fat cells. So glucose can come. So glucose can get inside and be used for energy. So we need that sugar for energy, but we need those doors to open to these different cells in our body, the muscle, the liver, and the fat, so that the glucose can, get inside of them and, be used for the energy, so that we can have energy to, walk around, move about, do the things that we need to do in life. Okay. And hopefully, we are able to do it efficiently. Or, if for the portions that have not been used for energy, they are actually stored for later, so that you have energy later. Okay. And then number five, cells take in glucose. Once glucose enters the cell, some is used for energy and some is stored. Okay, which is what I was saying. Muscle glycogen, liver glycogen, or fat. That's what it's stored, as. All right. And this is where insulin sensitive versus resistance changes the outcome. All right. So that's just like a little background of how it works, how the sugars are, breaking down in your body and things of that nature. Now, when it comes to insulin sensitivity, now this is a healthy response now. What it looks like inside the body: insulin knocks, the door opens easily. Or the key is put in their door, you unlock the door, you were able to walk in. Glucose enters the cell smoothly because the door is wide open. Blood sugar comes back down, okay? Because the insulin knock, the glucose enters the cell, and then so therefore that blood sugar can come down smoothly. All right. And then insulin levels drop. So now your insulin levels drop, your blood sugars are dropping, to where it's, back down. So it goes up a little bit as we eat, right? And then at some point, normally within the 60 to 90-minute mark after eating, then it goes back, it starts going back down. Okay. For people that are insulin sensitive. All right. What the person feels is steady energy, normal hunger signals, fewer cravings, fat loss is possible. So, of course, what they're saying is we could lose fat, because everything is working like it should in the body, like God intended for it to do. All right. So, in other words, the body handles carbs efficiently. Nothing gets backed up. There's no backup. There's no issues. Everything working like it's supposed to, like it was intended to. Okay. That's when you're insulin sensitive. All right. But then when you're insulin resistance, that's when there becomes a problem. Okay. What's happening inside the body when you're insulin resistant? Insulin knocks, the door barely opens. All right. Different from the insulin sensitivity. It's opening wide open, when it comes to being insulin sensitive. But insulin resistant is barely opening at all. All right. That key barely working, or it's not working at all. All right. Another thing, glucose stays stuck in the bloodstream because it cannot get through that door. So if that door is cracked, not much can get in it. If that door wide open, everything can go in like it's supposed to. All right. So glucose is stuck in the bloodstream. Our pancreas, everybody should have one, releases more insulin because all that glucose is everywhere. And then the blood sugar stays elevated longer. So, for instance, and you don't even have to be diabetic for this to happen. It's just about insulin resistant. So it's taking longer for those blood sugars to actually be, taken care of, and so that your sugars can drop down to where it's supposed to be. Like I was saying before, it go, your the sugars rise, the blood sugars rises at 60 to 90, maybe the first 60 minutes, and then it start going back down. 60 to 90 minutes, it should be going back down to whatever, kind of what it was, or your baseline, they call it, which is kind of whatever it was before you started eating. Okay. But that doesn't happen like it should from 60 to 90 minutes when you're having the insulin resistant issues. All right. So the body's backup plan, since glucose can't get into cells easy, the body stores it as fat. Insulin stays high. Fat burning shuts off. So now your body not burning fat anymore like we want it to, like your body should do. Okay. The insulin is high, meaning, the pancreas is excreting out, insulin left and right, and the body is storing fats. All right. So what the person feels during this time: hunger soon after eating, strong cravings, especially carbs and sugar, energy crashes, stubborn weight. Okay. And then also it states, I barely eat, but can't lose weight. So, you've heard people say, I don't even eat that much, but for some reason I'm not, losing weight. You would think I would lose weight if I'm, not eating a lot of food. But because you become insulin resistant, this is why it's happening. That's why you can barely eat, and then don't lose no weight. All right. So the system is backed up again. Too much sugar is in the bloodstream. Too much insulin is there, and there's nowhere to go. So again, insulin is a hormone that helps move that sugar from the blood into your cells for energy. All right, easier to probably say it to you all. All right, insulin resistance. Your cells stop listening to insulin. Sugar stays in the blood, and then insulin stays high. Your cells stop listening to insulin, so it's ignoring the insulin that's there, that the pancreas is pushing out to, take care of that sugar. So therefore, since it's ignoring it, sugar is still in that blood. It stays in that blood, right? Way longer than it should. And so therefore insulin is high because it's just keep, coming out to try to take care of that sugar. All right. And then insulin sensitivity. Your cells respond well. Sugars enters the cells and then the blood sugar stays stable. Okay. And that's because when the insulin comes out, the door is open from the key, which is the insulin. And then, now the sugar is going where it's supposed to be, entering the cells that it's supposed to enter. And then your blood sugar stays stable. That's what's going on in our bodies, whether you're insulin sensitive or you're insulin resistance. Now, when it comes to type 2 diabetes versus non-diabetic differences, type 2 diabetes, long-term insulin resistant, okay, which I've stated before. Pancreas is overworked and fatigued. Blood sugars regulation is priority. Okay, it's number one priority. Weight loss must support glucose stability. All right. That's what's going on when it comes to type 2 diabetics or people that have type 2 diabetes. Now, when it comes to non-diabetics or the weight loss, community, insulin resistance may be present early. You may have insulin resistance. So they can do tests. Doctors can do tests. Your insurance may not cover it, unfortunately. You have to, find out from your insurance company. But if you want to know if you're insulin resistant, you can ask your doctors about it. See if they can run a test to see what's going on in your body if you're insulin resistant. All right. Labs can look normal. Yep. Just because your labs are normal does not mean that you're not insulin resistant. Fat loss stalls, and I'm talking about the normal labs, right? They have specific labs that they can, look and just actually determine what's going on and if you are sensitive or resistant. Okay, so fat loss stalls before diagnoses. So your fat loss stalls. You're not losing fat like you should or like you would like to. And then hunger and cravings are early warning signs of this insulin resistance. All right, key point for, you all, you don't have to be a diabetic to be insulin resistant, which is what I said earlier. You do not have to be a diabetic. So when I talk about diabetes, I talk about insulin resistance, it would be great to, even if you're, not a diabetic, this is good information for you. It may be able to help you personally if you, especially if you're insulin resistant, or you may know somebody that is insulin resistant or have diabetes that can, that you can actually, kind of maybe talk to and try to give them some insight of what you're learning. Okay, here. So I do appreciate those who are not diabetic that will come in and chat with me as well, because, of course we're better together. So, and then also this channel is about better health. So again, knowledge is power. Okay. So how insulin resistance affect weight? High insulin equals fat storage mode. Fat burning is suppressed. Hunger increases. Cravings intensify. Energy levels drop. Calorie cutting backfires on you. So this is why willpower alone doesn't always work. Okay. Because of those things. Now, how to regain insulin sensitivity for both diabetics and non-diabetics. Foundational habits that fix the system. Strength training, okay? It helps your muscles soak up glucose. It helps your muscles to soak up that glucose that may be, in your body somewhere. Protein forward meals lessen the glucose spike, okay? So, how we always want to have high protein meals, that helps lessen that glucose spike that, we may encounter. Fiber, it slows digestion and sugar release. It slows digestion and sugar release. Okay, so that's why it's best to make sure you get enough fiber. They recommend 25 grams of fiber per day for the average person. And so some people, though, especially if you're on a GLP-1 medication, you may need a little bit more than that 25 grams. You have to ask your dietitian and your doctors about that. But I know that me going into, getting the fiber that I get now, my goal is 35 grams, a day. That helps me, slows it also slows my digestions on top of, whatever the GLP-1 is doing. But it also helps me release the sugar that I do not need to, store in my body. Okay. All right. Walking after meals uses glucose immediately. So it's good for not only diabetics to walk immediately after meals, say at least 10 to 15 minutes after meals, so your blood sugars won't spike or don't spike that fast. It's also good for people that are, on a weight loss journey that may be considered obese, morbidly obese. Okay. It helps us all lower insulin resistance. All right. And then also stress reduction. Cortisol raises blood sugar. Okay. So you don't want to be stressed out. You want to try to, minimize your stress, or at least well manage your stress, because when you're stressed out, we all know that the cortisol increases, and it, you know, raises your blood sugar, and it helps you, you'll end up, just holding on to the fat that's around your organs, in your belly, and then it's harder to lose weight. So the key difference, it says, type 2 diabetes must prioritize stability over speed. I'm sorry. The key difference is type 2 diabetes must prioritize stability over speed. Why am I saying that wrong? Type 2 diabetes must prioritize stability over speed. Okay. Slower weight loss, fewer glucose swings, meaning the spikes are getting lower, or more consistency and less restriction. Okay. So we want to be consistent, not so much be restrictive, but we want to be consistent. So the results to expect when sensitivity improves: better blood sugar response, less reactive eating, reduced cravings, more stable energy, and then sustainable fat loss over time. Okay. So just to let you all know, weight loss isn't about eating less. It's about fixing how your body handles what you eat. It's about fixing your body so it can handle what you eat, not just about eating less. Okay. That's what I wanted to talk about today, and let you know what chat told you, let you know what I researched, and all of the above. And so let me jump in this chat real quick. Good evening, Grant. Thanks for coming in. Felicia Marie Beast is saying hey to different people. Hello, the Boss Way. How are you doing? Thanks for coming in. Thanks for coming in. I'm going through the haze and everything. Hello, Jen F. How are you doing? Thanks for coming in. Mill said, what I have wondered, can someone eat themselves into being diabetic, but eating a lot of candy and sugar type things? All right. So yes, you could become diabetic. Some people never become diabetic because they eat a lot of sugar. It just depends, on the body, your makeup and everything. So it just depends. And like I was, explaining to you, in here, um, it depends on how well your body digests what it's supposed to digest. Okay. It just depends whether you're insulin sensitive or whether you are insulin resistant. Also, does alcoholic beverages lead to diabetes? Okay, so let me see if somebody said anything on this chat. Hold on. Before I get into it. Good night, Boss Way. I took my meds and sleeping. Okay, gotcha. All right. Resting, but okay. All right. Thank you for coming in, Shiny. Thank you. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're feeling better. Yes. All right. So, Mia, back to your question. Oh, I'm sorry. Mia, back to your question about, alcohol, and let me see, what else is it? Hold on. alcohol beverages, she asks about, as well as um, what we eat, candy, sugars, and things of that nature. Can it, cause insulin resistance, and then you become a diabetic? And I want to just hold on, y'all. All right, so just to let you know, just telling you what website states. Yes, consume, which is what I already said, but I just want to give you a little bit more in depth into it. So, Curious with Kim. Yes, consuming high amounts of sugar, candy, and alcohol significantly increases the risk of developing insulin resistance as well as type 2 diabetes. Excessive sugar intake causes chronic high blood sugars, okay, which I kind of explained to you. But forcing the pancreas to overproduce insulin, which eventually leads to cells resisting insulin and elevating glucose levels, in a nutshell. So, yes, it can. Years and years of candy, sugars, alcohols, sodas, rice, all of the things can lead to that. Breads, junk food, all of that can lead to, insulin resistance, depending on how much you eat of it, and how your body actually know if it knows how to process the things that it that you're intaking, or did you digest that you're digesting. So yes, it can lead to that. Okay, Mia. Um, so yes, that can happen. Let me see. I was trying to see what else it was saying. Um, it also says symptoms of prediabetes. So also, when like I said before, when you're insulin resistant, at some point you could your blood sugars are all over the place. It could make your A1C go up. Your blood sugars, of course, is up. Your A1C goes up, and then you become pre-diabetic. Okay, in that pre-diabetic range, or at some point you can also become diabetic. So I know I spoke with y'all before about, when it comes to diabetes versus pre-diabetes versus, you being in normal range. So when you get your blood work, done at, checked at the lab, like a Quest or something like that, or at your doctor's office, you know, they're doing your blood work definitely at least once a year. And when you do your wellness visit, then they're going to check for that diabetes. I'm sorry, they're going to check for the A1C, and they're going to check your fasting blood sugars. So like when they tell you, hey, don't eat after 12 midnight, come to the, get your blood work checked, the next day when you wake up. And then, they'll check because they're going to more than likely check for that fasting blood sugar as well as the A1C. Okay. And so when they do that, when it comes to the normal range, of your A1C, you want to make sure that the normal range would be, you want your A1C to be 5.6 or down, under that. Okay. 5.6 or under. That's a normal A1C for people. If you are pre-diabetic, then it's 5.7 to 6.4. Okay, that's your A1C, anywhere between 5.7 to 6.4. If you're diabetic, it's anywhere between 6.5 and up. Okay, I'm not sure, what's the highest an A1C could go, but I do know, like for me, my A1C was 15.1, which is, if you're talking about 5.7 is the starting of the, diabetic range, and I was at a 3 times higher. That was really, 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 dangerous to be, living in that state. I have been insulin resistance for I don't know how long, because I've never got tested for insulin resistance only. but I had been insulin resistant for so long. Okay. And then to the point where my organs got tired, overworked, you know, and my pancreas, just some of the liver, just different cells, different organs and everything. And so therefore I became diabetic. So that's why for me, I'm like, I got to get it down fast. I got to make this thing go back down because it can affect your kidneys. It can affect your liver. It can affect your pancreas. It can affect your heart, all your organs in your body. It can affect being insulin resistance, being, diabetic. Okay. So when I, heard about, what my, diagnosis was, I knew immediately I had to do something about it. And I had to do something very, very quickly because again, when you're diabetic, you can, you can lose your vision, or your vision at least become, very blurry. You can become very fatigued a lot of times. You're very thirsty. You can't you can't quench that thirst. Because that's the sugars all over everywhere, and you're trying to get the water in you so that we can break down that stuff so it can go on out your body. So, of course, doing all that, you have frequent urination, and this can be for people that have pre-diabetes as well as diabetes. Okay. So you have to watch out for those things. You have to watch out to see if, am I being a little too thirsty, extremely thirsty? Am I frequently using the bathroom, urinating all the time? And then now I want to go and run back to the kitchen and get some more water, and I just can't get enough of it. Am I fatigued, a little too fatigued? Am I having blurry vision, not seeing as good as I used to? Am I having, say if I get a sore on my body somewhere, is it taking a longer time now to heal than what it once did before? What about numbness in your hands and your feet? Is your tip of your fingers feeling numb? Is your feet feeling numb a lot? Those are signs of or symptoms of being pre-diabetic or diabetes. And that insulin resistance can cause, you to become pre-diabetic and as well as diabetic if it's not taken, if you're not making sure it's under control. So we want to be insulin sensitive, at all times. And if for some reason you are insulin resistant, you find out from your doctor that you are insulin resistant, then guess what? You need to do whatever you can to try to get it back to becoming insulin sensitive before you become a diabetic. Now, if you're a diabetic already, then you need to do everything in your willpower to make sure that you are, getting your levels back to a normal range, your A1C back to a normal range. So, for instance, people that are taking, GLP-1s, Mounjaro, and or Ozempic, it's important for us to make sure that we are doing what we can do so that our blood sugars can go down naturally, as well as using the medication to help in that effort. All right. So that's why not only are you trying to worry about losing weight so much for those who are obese and diabetic or just obese, you also want to make sure that your body is functioning like it's supposed to. Okay. You want to make sure that every organ that, you have been given, that that it's being used like it should. You want to make sure that, that key unlocks that door and it opens wide up so that, those cells can, do what they're supposed to do. Take on that sugar so that, it can get what it needs from, which means we're nourishing our body with whatever it needs. And then the rest can go out. The waste or the rest of it can go out, into the bathroom, into the toilet rather. So that's what we want to do. All right. So let's see. Mia says also do. Oh, I don't say that. Okay. Let me see. Okay. So Jenny said, okay, I'm sorry. All right. So Mia says, okay, if you are already diabetic, what happens if you eat a couple cookies? Do you run risk of getting sick, feeling yucky from that choice, or is it like eating an egg and sausage? So is it not? It's definitely not like eating egg and sausage, okay? Because the egg and sausage is protein, okay? And protein, it's for, it helps you with, you know, not become, not, it's making sure your sugar does not spike up. It normally does not cause an insulin spike or a sugar spike. Okay. It doesn't make your blood sugars rise much when you're eating eggs or you're eating sausage, unless you're putting a lot of, things that are sugary, or a lot of carbs with it. All right. So you're pretty, stable. Even for diabetics, they're pretty stable when it comes to, eating just protein by itself. But when you eating something that's a carb, like a rice, potatoes, things of that nature, and it's other things, but I'm just saying, just meat and I mean rice and potatoes, then that's, your insulin will, go up some. It's going to go up some. So when it comes to eating cookies, yes, the insulin, especially if you eating a cookie by itself, it's definitely going to rise up. It's going to spike. Yes. Okay. And that's because, again, your body is insulin resistant, and it's just all, that sugar, that key is not opening that door like it's supposed to. The door is only, you know um cracked. So it's not enough, for the pancreas cannot, release enough insulin to break down them sugars like they're supposed to. So your sugar goes up, and it stays up a long time, longer than that 60 to 90 minutes, that it should. It could take 3 hours for, diabetics, blood glucose to go back down. I'm sorry. Yeah, that's it. To go back down, your sugars, which is, more that most people know about. It's called your blood sugars. Your blood sugars to go back down to, what it's supposed to be, whatever it was, before you start eating. So some people feel yucky, some people don't. It just depends on the person. Okay. Some people feel yucky when their sugars rise too much, and some people don't. Some people feel yucky when their sugars go too low because they haven't eaten anything, which is kind of what I have been experiencing, not eating, um, maybe not eating enough carbs, in a day. And so my blood sugar started going lower, and so then I had to, start eating more carbs so that, I won't, have the blood sugar lows. All right. So Jenny says, if my blood was spiked, I could tell a few ways. I did feel yucky or get really sleepy sometimes. Yes. And I remember, when I was just eating like I wanted to, and it wasn't on like a plan, the better health journey that I'm on now. I remember when I ate carbs, I got very, very sleepy, like almost immediately after, if I had a carb heavy meal. And um, so I understand where you're coming from, Jenny. But it did not make me feel yucky. No, I did not feel yucky. I didn't feel anything. And there are people that don't feel, any of this stuff, right? For me, when my sugars go low, most of the time I don't feel it. I don't feel it until like it's very, very low. So it just depends on the person, the anatomy of the person. Thank you for that, Jenny. Thank you for the questions, Mia. I've had a friend and her mom that had problems with diabetes. She would eat high sugars, then to have 300 sugar readings. Okay, so she's, took her blood glucose, and her sugar was up to 300, and that's a spike. Okay, from like say she may be, for instance, at 120. Okay, she's just say she's a diabetic, and her before she ate she was at 120, but then she ate something, and then all of a sudden it rises all the way to 300, and then it sits there for a long time, then it finally inches down little by little. Okay, but our sugars, like I said, will rise. However, it should be going down, back down after 60 to the 90-minute mark. It should be kind of back, down or downward to that baseline, which is before you started eating. But people that have insulin resistance, it does take a longer time. People that have diabetes, it takes a longer time for the sugars to be broken down like it should be, because again, that door is open very small. Okay. Okay, thank you, Jenny. All right, Jenny says, you're welcome. Jenny, my name is Mia. Nice to meet you. Jenny says, if it was low, I get dizzy or lightheaded. Yes, some people do. They get dizzy and lightheaded. Now, for me, when I like the times I experienced my lows, I was at 50 something, and you don't want the low. You don't want your blood sugars to go under 70. But for some reason, I didn't feel anything until I got to like 50 something. My blood sugar was like 50, say 6, 58. That's which is not good. That I don't feel it. That's why, this is one of the, diseases, ailments, whatever you want to call it. It is considered a silent killer. You know, that's why. Because some people do not feel it at all. And even with going up, some people feel their sugar's going up. They're like, oh, my sugar's going up. I can feel my sugar. I feel like you said, a headache or, different things. Not me. I'm not feeling that. I'm not feeling that at all. So with that being said, some people decide to use a continuous glucose monitor, right? I just make sure I check my blood sugars, with the regular glucose monitor. So the regular glucose monitor is supposed to be the best way to find out if, what your blood sugars are at that moment. Okay. The continuous glucose monitor, it's a little delayed. The results are a little delayed. But so when you have a continuous glucose monitor, that's like, y'all may have heard of, on the, like a commercial or somebody that is called a Freestyle Libre, or a Dexcom. So it's a little device that goes in the back of your arm, and that's where the proof, areas you should be putting it on the back of your arm, and it's a round circle. I know with the Freestyle Libre, it's a round little circle, it's white, and you'll see somebody, sometimes you'll see people with that thing on their arm that maybe that more than likely it probably is the Freestyle Libre that they're using. There's, like I said, a Dexcom too. And that's another device, continuous glucose monitor device that you use, and it measures your blood sugars too. So you won't have to keep pricking that finger all the time and getting your blood. Okay. And so a lot of people will use that because, for one, it's easier. You don't have to worry about it. It's one and done. You put that thing in your arm and it's there for Dexcom. I think it's 10 days. For Freestyle Libre 3, it was 14 days. That's the one I was using. And then the Freestyle Libre 3 Plus is 15 days. And I know Grant, had, experience using the Freestyle Libre 3, if I'm not mistaken, the Plus. And you don't have to actually have diabetes to do, to use the Freestyle Libre. You can actually buy, your own. You can buy it yourself over the counter. Mia says, so if it's low is when you drink orange juice or eat candy. Yes. Yes. When it's low, it's good to go get a fast acting carb. Okay. Preferably hard candy, or like orange juice or something like that. So it can hurry up and get it up, spike it up a little bit so that it can get back to at least 100. And then you want to eat after, that you want to check your sugar, every 15 minutes until, it gets up to that point where it's supposed to be, like at least to 100 is what I was told. And then you want to eat something that's balanced, like a protein and a complex carb, a good carb. Okay. You can do that, or a fat, and carb, something of that nature. Or fiber too. You can do fiber and carb. That would, so that way it won't, spike up even more, that it'll start stabilizing it. Okay. Yep. So you're right, Mia. I have asked for a CGM for my dog. Sometimes they do not give you a CGM if you're not diabetic. They won't like prescribe you one. Some people you have to, be diabetic in order to get it. I'm not sure if you can get it, from certain doctors if you're not diabetic. But again, you can ask for a blood test. You may have to pay the full amount for it. The insurance may not cover it. You have to ask your insurance company. But yeah, it's definitely good to know if you're sensitive or resistant. Definitely good to know that. And Grant says CGMs are wonderful for the most part. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. I use the CGM right, when I was getting out of the hospital, when I found out about my diabetes diagnosis, they were trying to get my sugars down because it was at 400. And they were like, we got to get it down as quick as possible. So I had to go to the emergency room. They admitted me into the hospital. And for 2 days, they were working on me to try to get those sugars back down to the to a acceptable range. Okay. Which is right around the lower 100s. Once I got it back there, then they were able to send me home, but they sent me home with, insulin, two of them, fast acting and a slow acting. And so I use the fast acting right before I ate. Okay, every time I ate my meals, I had to use the fast acting insulin. Okay, and then at bedtime, I had to use that slow acting insulin. So the fast acting, of course, works quick, pretty quick and kind of almost immediately, right? But the slow acting, it works throughout the day. Okay, I needed both of them. And then I also decided to get on a very, very low carb regimen so that I will not, so I can kind of help those blood sugars not spike so much and go right back to 400. You know what I mean? That's what I did. And then I did notice I was talking about stress a little earlier when I was reading, my information to you. Stress made those sugars go up, spike, go fast. Okay. And with the Libre, when I had, started using that, I noticed I could look at my app because it comes, you can monitor it on the app, their app. And when I was looking at it, I would, notice how it had like an arrow to go up, so it's showing you, hey, this is the glucose, your blood sugar's reading, right? And then it shows an arrow right by it. And it's either the arrow is going to go up, it's going to show that it's, going over, like, you know, kind of like flatline, I guess I would say. And then, or it shows down. When it shows up, that means it's quickly rising. It's moving too fast. It's going. It is about to spike. Okay. It's spiking up. Right. When it shows that it's downward, that arrow downward next to that number, that means it's going down too low. It's moving fast. It's going downward. Okay. And then when it's, like this, like a line across, then that means it's a stable number. It's not going to be doing too much of moving, up or down, so that's how that goes. And it had a area where it, actually kept the information for the 24 hours. So you can kind of see the average, how it was working, how your blood sugar was looking, 24 hours, within 24 hours of that day. So it was very, very informational to use the, especially right out the bat, off the bat, me being, never been a diabetic before, never, been diagnosed or whatever. That definitely helped me a lot. It helped me learn a lot, because it's helping you learn, like when I eat something, say my breakfast, how does it, is this breakfast here? Is it spiking my sugar? Is it stabilized? Is, me eating this meal, does my sugar stay stable? Or, is my sugars lowering because of this type meal I'm eating? So it's very, very informative, very informative. And then it also, had a indicator to tell you how your, the average of your sugars through, each day. Okay. And then also in the 30-day mark, in the 60-day mark, in the 90-day mark. Okay. And whatever that 90-day mark is, that will tell you, it kind of gave you an indication of how your, if you were to test your A1C at that time, that's more than likely where your A1C would be. Okay. Because your A1C is like a number, average of your blood sugars for 3 months, the last 3 months or 6 months. Okay. But they had to check my A1C a lot because of the fact that, me, with my sugars being so high, they checked the blood glucose a lot, and they checked my A1C a lot because they was trying to see how, the aggressiveness of the medication that they gave me and the things that I was doing as far as eating is concerned to try to get those blood sugars and that A1C down, to a more acceptable number. They wanted to check my A1C a lot. Now, once my A1C went down to like an 8, because they have a chart that they use, and that chart doesn't go above 10. If it's anything above 10, you talking dangerous. You hear me? Very, very dangerous. So that's why they was like, we got to do something immediately. You need to go to the emergency room. Don't drive. Don't stop nowhere. Get there quick, fast, in a hurry, so we can start working on you to make you better, to make those sugars better, to make that glucose better, or aka sugars, as well as the A1C. Okay. And then from what they say, once a diabetic, you're always a diabetic. So that's why, for those who are not diabetic, you want to make sure that you're doing everything in your will, everything you can do to kind of be mindful of the sugars that you put in your mouth, the carbs that you put in your mouth. Because you think about, people like, say, if I say, oh, I drink Cokes all the time. Oh, that's bad. That's bad. Oh my goodness. You shouldn't be drinking them sodas. Them sodas are not good for you. Nor is all that, them juices. Them juices ain't good for you either. If you're drinking so many of them, if you're drinking a lot of them, they're not good for you either. Because they got high fructose in them, not good for our bodies. Okay. So, we have to be mindful. Don't think, oh, okay, I'm gonna throw a stone at this person because they drinking Coca-Colas, but but I'm over here drinking, all these other sugary things. And we even got to be mindful of how many, sugar-free things we intake, because that can make your blood sugars go up too. I remember when I first started, when I got back home, and I'm like, okay, I know, things like the low sugar, like drinks or whatever. I'm trying to think of one of them. Crystal Light, even though they said it's, a sugar substitute or whatever, it still had my sugars going up, especially if I drank it by itself. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that, when you're eating these carbs, like for instance, Mia talked about the cookies. If you're going to eat a cookie, it's okay to eat a cookie if you're, period, for anybody. But if you're going to eat it in moderation. Okay. But not only that, eat some protein or some veggies with it so that, it won't, it will, you'll front load with those. And then when you eat that one cookie, maybe two if they're small, if you eat those, then you will already have something that's front loading your stomach, or your digestive system. And then it'll slow down that insulin spike that would have happened if you ate the cookie by itself, or if you drunk the fruit juice by itself. There's nothing wrong with you having it. Sometimes, okay? You don't want to have it all the time, but sometimes there's nothing wrong with you having it. That's why when I say I live my sweet healthy life, I'm not just talking about I'm living and all I'm doing is eating 100% clean, 100% like I'm supposed to. No, I'm not saying that. I'm going to I'm going to have a piece of cake every now and again. I'm going to have a cookie every now and again, but I'm going to be responsible with it by making sure I front load my, myself, my body with, protein, with veggies, fibrous veggies, like ones that have fiber, good green leafy veggies, not corn, not corn, but, because some people think corn is a veggie, it's a starch. So not saying you can't eat corn, but again, you want to make sure that you're getting your protein in, you make sure you get your fiber in, your veggies in, your fats in, and then you can have your little, your goodness, your goodness, honey, that cookie you want or whatever, or piece of cake, or, rice. You don't have to always eat brown rice. Yes, brown rice is a little bit more nutritional than white rice, but some people just can't eat brown rice. They're like, I just don't like it. I don't want it, you know, and that's fine. But make sure you eating a small portion of rice, not a whole big old plate of rice, and making sure you eat your, your veggies, you eat your, and that's how I was taught: veggies first, protein second, carbs last. That's how I was taught. Now I know some people say protein first, veggies, then carbs, but that's how I was taught. And it worked for me. That's what I did. When I came home, that's what I did. Okay. Now I can eat, if I want, I still put a protein or a veggie in my mouth first. Make sure I put a few forks full of that. I may do veggie protein, veggie meat a little bit, and then I put a little bit of carbs in my body. Okay. So yeah, just learning how to eat these things. Before, back in the day, they used to say diabetics should not eat, any fruits, barely any fruit. You need to just only eat berries. They changed that now. You shouldn't eat rice. You shouldn't eat white potatoes. You shouldn't eat this, all this shouldn't. When you start telling me I shouldn't, and all this stuff I shouldn't do, guess what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna want to eat it. I'm gonna want to eat more of it. Now I really want it. You know how when we tried to do that keto diet, and they say we can't eat, all these, I can't eat carbs. I only can eat green leafy veggies, or what is it? I can't remember that. I never can remember how to say that name, but it's green leafy veggies, like cabbage, kale, collard greens, or some other type of green like that. They want you to eat stuff like that mainly. And then fruit, they want you to eat berries, mainly berries, because that's very low in sugar. Because you can only have like the real keto is like you only can have like 20 carbs, 20 net carbs a day. So those are the things that, have very little carbs, like a trace of carbs. So with that being said, that was hard to do. Even though you may have been a meat eater or a veggie eater, when you tell me I can't eat carbs, it's like, now I want them more. I want all of them. I want all the carbs. That's why a lot of times when we get off the keto diet, after it fails us, then we end up, right back to eating, gorging out on carbs because we miss them so much, So you just got to know how to eat them, now versus saying don't eat this and don't eat that and don't eat that and don't eat that. Tell me what I can't eat. That help. Like I said, you want to push forward positive, not negative. And that can trigger people telling me you can't do this and you can't, and you got all this stuff that I was used to eating and now I can't eat none of it, All right. Mia says, let me see. I'm sorry. Let me go back to Grant's. Grant says CGMs are wonderful for the most part. That's the one way to get glucose back up. Yes. So, like I said before, when you're talking about, the glucose can go down, too far down, under 70 is too far down, and you really only want to be at 70, 71, 72. You really want to be higher than that, because if it's there, like on my glucose monitor, when I'm at 70 something, it's like, okay, you're going low. You may want to eat something within the next 15 minutes. It gives me that indicator. Say, go ahead and eat because you don't want to start dipping under 70. Okay. So that glucose monitor has definitely helped, us when we use it to see, to help us, better monitor our glucose throughout the day. All right, Mia says they won't approve it through insurance, right? Because you're not diabetic. But there's a company you can get it from if you don't have diabetes. But I wanted it to help me see how food affected me, right? Which is why I use it, to help me see that, as well as, of course, to monitor those glucose levels, making sure they don't, keep spiking up, so I can get my A1C down, my blood, sugars down, and my A1C down quickly. It gives another picture of my body and how it reacts. Yes, so true, Mia. All right, Grant says insurance doesn't cover mine either since I'm not on insulin. Pay about $75 a month. Okay, for me, my insurance covers mine as a diabetic, and Grant is a diabetic as well. But my insurance covers my insulin. My insurance covers my my if I want a Dexcom, right? but they don't cover the Libre. So since came out of the hospital, I was introduced to Libre. That's the one I want to stick to because it had my numbers, on it when I started using it right before I left out of the hospital. So I just kept using that one. And so I was paying out of pocket as well. But I went to CVS, and I would get my my Freestyle Libre 3s from CVS Pharmacy. And I paid $75 as well. Yes. So the Dexcom, you have to, change again 3 times a month. It's only good for 10 days. And then you change, you switch it out. With the Libre, you switch it out twice a month. All right. So Mia says, well, my doctor wrote it my doctor wrote it, but Walgreens wouldn't fill it because of my insurance. I had gotten a coupon given to me for a free trial of it, but it didn't work out. I'm sorry about that, Mia. Grant says, thankfully, Manjaro has been enough to keep my type 2 diabetes under control. Yes. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Grant. Great stuff. What was your A1C, Grant, initially? Good night, and Jenny. I just wanted to say hi. Thank you. Excited for Friday. I hope everyone stays safe and warm with the storm. Thank you so much, Jenny. All right, Mia says a lot of miscommunication and the coupon got erased. Okay, gotcha. I wonder if you can get another one. Find a way to get another coupon, Mia. Grant says, oh, wow, it's worth trying again for that coupon. Yes. All right. Mia says, there's a non-diabetic lady that used a CGM to help her on her journey. Yes, it's several people that use them nowadays, and weight loss place suggests how foods do in your body because exercise at certain times is better, and CGM can help figure out the best time, I was told. Yes, because it's like I said, it's monitoring the Libre. It was monitoring my glucose every minute of the day, and it giving me my averages for the day, and like I said, for the week, for the for like 7 days, 30 days. I want to say, I can't remember if it's 45, but 60 days and 90 days. Yes. And I wore it all the way up to, that indicator that is a portion on there that would tell you, it's called the glucose management indicator. Thanks. That's on the app. Grant, reminded me the other night about it. Glucose, what I said, shoot. Glucose management indicator. That indicator that's on that app will let us know how our, sugars are looking over time. What's the average over time. So like I said, when you go back to get your blood work, you kind of already know, you got a sneak peek of what it's going to be, when you go and get your blood work done. And so mine had already told me, my indicator had already told me that I was between 5.6 and 5.7 at that 90 mark, a little bit before the 90 mark. And then the next month I got my, my blood readings done at the, at Quest, and it came back, that I was indeed 5.6, back to the normal range. So it was the highest part of the normal range, but it was still the normal range. Oh, I'm sorry. So Grant says Libre 3 Plus and Dexcom G7. Right, that was the G7. It's one they let me, I could get through my insurance. Has a free one-time coupon for the first one. Okay. Thanks for that, Grant. Thanks for that. I need to probably jump into that. Because I was thinking about using it again. So that might be something to think about. But I still think I'm going to use the Libre though. If I use it, I only want to use it for a small amount of period just because I have those lows still. So I was thinking about, maybe going back to it. So we shall see. We shall see. Because I've been thinking for a while. I just haven't done it. Because again, the downsides of those things, those little tiny things make a lot of noise sometimes. And it's an indicator, like if you are going low, it lets you know. It starts ringing like crazy. Okay. waking everybody up in the house when you sleep. And some of it, sometimes it does that because of compression lows. You're on that thing, you may miss and roll over. And so the compression from, you rolling on top of it, it can set the alarm off like crazy. They're thinking you're going low, and really you're not. So when you have those alarms, they want you to check your blood sugar by, the regular glucose monitor to see if you really are having a low, or, if it was a false alarm. Yep. And I was getting so many false alarms. At some point, I was like, I can't do this no more. I can't do it. I can't do it. Because, I mean, the first 3 days, that thing probably going to go off at least 2 to 5 times in one night. And I'm like, I'm sleeping. I want to go to sleep. I need to sleep. So, yeah. And I wasn't rolling over mine, because I would make sure I put it on the side where I'm going to be comfortable to sleep on, say if I put it over here, I'm going to sleep over this way. I'm not going to even try to, I'm not going nowhere near that arm. That arm is over here like this, because I don't want it to, I don't want to, mess up anything, make the thing start going off. But it was going off for some reason. I don't know. And then seemed like after that third day, it just calmed down. Not sure, but that was crazy. So Grant says yes, and it is pretty close to actual A1C number in my experience. Yes, in my experience as well. Thank you. And everything I'm talking about tonight, it's about my experience, or it's about something I read, up on a, like a reputable, website or something like that, for anybody to, look into themselves. All right. Mia says the coupon was given to me by someone who has type 2, but got a different machine. Gotcha. Okay. But go ahead and try to look around. Maybe even, look around on on Google, Mia, and see if you can see something else. Because like Grant said, they may end up, giving something out, from different places. Like he was saying, they're letting us now get the Freestyle Libre Plus 3 Plus, or the Dexcom 7, which is right here. They're letting us get, one of those for the first time. So, and I know people are using them. I know people that are not diabetic, they're using them. So, Grant, let's see. Okay, so Grant says you can get another one off each of the websites. I have one for the Dexcom G7 right now. That should work. Okay, cool. Hello, Latera. How you doing? Thanks, Grant, for that. Thanks for coming in. Mia says, I don't have any high numbers or necessarily need other than wanting to learn my body so I can train myself to eat the best way I can for fuel and exercise. Yes, I understand. So really for you, if you were to get one, especially if I don't know if you eat a lot of the same things, but if you were to get one, maybe you can get one for, like a month supply, which is, like I said, if it's Libre 3 plus, you only need it twice, or the Libre 3. Okay. And it has an app to go with it to help you, monitor those things and do what you're trying to do. If you have to get, there's others out there. It's not just the Libre and the Dexcom. It's so many others out there that they have out there that you may be able to get your hands on one of them. So look it up, go on Google and just put in search, continuous glucose monitors, that you can get and non-diabetic. How much do they cost or something like that? It's something that you want to put in that search bar and let them see if you can, find something that is a little bit more affordable for you and you can get without prescription. That's a good reason. I mean, that's a good reason to have one, Mia. Yep. Grant said that. It'd be tripping me out. I'll say something, then I look on the next line, it's like saying the same thing. Mia says, honestly, I have struggled stopping smoking and trying to go to food for feelings, not fuel. And I'm trying to build a plan to help myself be accountable and eat cleaner, not ultra processed foods. And that's awesome, Mia. That's awesome. Awesome, awesome. That's what we all want to try to get to at some point. People is, everybody is, started at a different, pace or at a different level, and so for whatever reason, I'm trying to get this thing open and I can't get it open, Jesus. So I can drink some water. There you go. Water break. But, you know, I think it's worth it. It's worth, you know, doing whatever you need to do to make sure, again, that you're doing well, that you're overall becoming healthier. So definitely try to, you know where you're going and how you're doing what you're doing, the things that you share with us, Mia. It sounds like you have come a long way, love. You have come a long way, and so I do commend you for that. Being brave to do the things that you have been done, that you've been doing, and you just continue to push on. Just think about the things that you were that you were able to overcome, and that you're overcoming as you continue to, jump in these streets, learn more things, about things, even if it's not really pertaining to you. You still, come to support. You still come, with the mind to, I want to learn more. I want to know more. And let me find something that's going to, maybe help me, in the long run. Or I can, share it with somebody else that I know may be struggling with, a particular thing. So, that's awesome that you have a spirit of learning. You want to learn more, about these different things. So God is going to honor that for you because you're doing, what you can do about it. You know, you're pushing forward towards that healthy being, the healthiest that you can be at this moment. So God would definitely honor you for it. And you continue to pray about, the smoking, and, ask him to just deliver you from it all. The things that you may have, the habits that you have that doesn't serve you best or your body best. Again, like I said yesterday, God gave us this temple, you know to do his work. And so therefore we have to be good stewards of our body. And even if we weren't before, he forgives us. He gives us grace. And so he's also given us knowledge, and we're sharing it together on this platform. He's given us this platform to be able to use it to share the things that we know, the things that we've experienced, and what we've researched, what our doctors have told us, and things of that nature. So, you want to, for instance, eat the meat and spit the bones out. Okay. But yes, you're doing a great job, sis. You're doing a great job. And yes, even though you may have eaten a lot of ultra processed foods before, because they're quick, they're easy, they're so a lot of times cheaper than the other foods, the foods that we should be eating, the ones that are less processed or not processed at all. That's the ones we really should be eating, less processed or not processed at all. But as long as you're pushing forward to get to that point that you're just saying, you're trying to be accountable, which is great. You're also trying to get rid of those ultra processed foods. That's awesome. That's awesome. Keep going. So she says, see, I don't eat rice. I don't eat pasta. I was real strict until surgery came. Understandably so, because surgery stopped you from being able to move around a lot, right? So therefore, you needed something a little quicker to grab hold to, something easy to grab so that you can, go and sit and rest your body, rest that leg, that ankle, or whatever. So that's understandable. But you can jump right back on it. Also, if you can, if you want some rice, and you say you don't eat rice, but just say if you did, you wanted rice, they have the, individual packs that you can put in the microwave, and cook for 90 seconds. That's easy for those who may have had surgery or whatever, and they're used to eating that kind of stuff, or whatever. Or if say you don't know how to cook rice, and you can do, there's white rice like that. You got, and brown rice that way, quinoa, all those things that way. So, you know, they have the boil in the bags that you can use, things like that to make you to make sure that you are, getting healthier options. It may not be the healthiest, but it also may not be ultra processed either. So it's still better for you than, the ultra processed foods. But I understand where you're coming from. So hopefully, you can get back to where you, can move around a lot in your home, and you can get back, on the regimen that you had, that you have been doing. And then, you've built habits along the way, great habits or good habits. So hopefully you can jump back on to those things that you were doing before. Okay. All right. Grant said that's a great goal for sure. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. All right. Hello, Self Health India. How you doing, Hermione? Thanks for coming in, sweetheart. Mia says, yeah, I got that. It's definitely balance. Yes, and balance is definitely key. Yes. All right. Grant says Libre is better than Dexcom in that it tracks glucose readings every minute instead of one every 5 minutes, like the Dexcom. Yes, I could not remember when how the Dexcom works because I've never used one, but definitely that Libre is every minute. And then, like I said, it gives you a run of that time, every minute. It also tells you, the average for that day, for the hour, each hour, every day, the days, the week, the month, like that, and it definitely will, helps you with better monitoring your sugars, because the only thing about, I guess the bad thing about, using a regular glucose monitor is it's going to tell you the exact time that you're pricking it. That's exactly what it's, where it's at, right? Where in the continuous glucose monitor, it's only going to tell you, it's like I said, delayed. Okay. A little bit, just a little delayed. Okay. And so that's why they tell you, if you're feeling a low blood sugar, that Dexcom, the Dexcom or the Libre tells you your sugars are low, you need to go and check the real deal, which is your regular glucose monitor, where you actually have the needle, you have to prick your finger and then, put it in that little monitor so that it can tell you what the readings are. The thing that I think is the worst about that, using that reader, the regular glucose monitor, is that you can, after that moment, then it might go up, it might go down. You don't know what it's doing. So that's the good thing about having that continuous glucose monitor. Now, again, my doctor told me I didn't have to use the continuous glucose monitor anymore. He actually told me, because I was back down at 5.6 so fast, he's like, girl, you're doing the thing. You are doing it. Okay. So, he's like, you don't really have to check your blood sugars, but maybe twice a week. I told him that I was going to check it every day, twice a day, just in case, because I had experienced the low blood sugars even then, just not as much as I had started as time progressed. Once I got on just the Manjaro, it was the same. I was fine for a while, and then it started back going down again. But what I more recently heard is that, from my doctors, is that what it is that you have become much more insulin sensitive. So your body is working like it's supposed to do, more so now than it did before. So, that's why, my sugars can potentially go low because of that. Plus me losing the weight, exercising and things of that nature. That is why, you know, I sometimes have the low blood sugars. So since that's the case, that's why they moved me back down to that 5 milligram dose from that 7.5. All right, Grant said you really have to give it a day to regulate to your actual reading too, after putting a new sensor on. Yes, yep, that's true. That's what they say. That's what's said. Um, Grant, thank you for that. Mia says I will check again. Yes, don't give up, Mia. Don't give up. Oh my God. Hopefully something will come for come for you. One good thing about the Dexcom, however, is it allows you to calibrate it based on a blood glucose test, so it's more accurate. Okay, so he's saying the Dexcom a little bit more accurate than the Libre. Okay, is that what you're saying? Yep, yep. It's more accurate, I'm assuming, than the Libre. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I don't know anything about the Dexcom, honey. Once I started at Libre and it was working for me, I just stayed there. Like, don't fix what ain't broken. Oh my God. And then even though my insurance company only, cover the Dexcom, the Libre and the Dexcom the same price. So I was just like, and plus I only have to stick myself twice, with the Libre versus 3 times with the Dexcom. So I was like, let me just stick with this Dexcom. I'm sorry, let me switch this Libre. That's what I decided. So Mia says, I have 90 pounds more to lose, so I have to take it seriously. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Definitely. We all should be taking this thing seriously, even if it was only 20 pounds to lose. I only had 15 more pounds before my goal weight. And then I started going up because I had to go down on the medication, because of my low sugars to better control those, to make sure I don't keep getting low sugars. So I went back up a good, what, maybe 13, 14 pounds. So now, now I gotta try to push back down to that. I gotta find something else I need to do to push back down to it. And look like my thing went. So let me see. Hold on. Let's see when. Yeah, I'm 13 pounds up from my lowest weight on this journey. But then I still got, now I got 25 pounds to lose. I got 25 pounds to lose, honey. So I got to find something out, figure something out. If I got to stay on this 5 milligrams, I got to figure something else out. I don't know what I'm going to do. We're going to see. But like I said, more importantly than weight is definitely my blood sugars. And that's those people with diabetes, as well as pre-diabetes, we definitely need to be making sure we worry about sugar more than we worry about weight. We need to lose some weight if we're obese, right? Or morbidly obese. But we definitely need to make sure the sugar's right. Okay? First and foremost. All right. Mia says, okay, I read that. All right. Mia says, yeah, I had to get humble and come to support and learn. Yes, 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 yes. And we thank you for that. We thank you for that. And even like you, amen, Grant says, even like you, that's why I go and follow people that are on Zepbound. I want to learn about, their thing too. Plus I just like supporting, I love supporting people, especially you trying to do, trying to figure your health situation out. Yeah. So, all right. Mia says, I fully stopped smoking beginning of December completely, but I'm relearning now how to do my journey because I would smoke to not eat if I felt like it. Yes, I know what you're saying. Yep. And I mean, I had family members that smoked, some uncles, some aunts that smoked, cigarettes or whatever. And yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. But I'm happy for you that you are doing much better now and that you chose, your health, your lungs, or whatever. And you're, trying to take care of yourself better. All right. She said, thank you both very, very much. I love this information because I don't understand the sugar stuff completely. Right. And I know a lot of people don't. So that's why I was like, you know what? Let's talk about this. I talked to my girl, Felicia, and like her, I thought that was commendable for her to, decide to take care of her dad like she does and make sure that he's doing well, with his A1C numbers, when she talks to me and she talks to him, she thinks about what he's doing and she like, y'all worry about y'all sugar, you know, y'all worry about y'all sugar. Yes, you want to lose, you may want to lose some weight, Kim J, but your sugar is most important. That's what you think about most. I'm like, yeah. And she said, but it's a lot of people in the community. And I said the same thing that, they may have diabetes, but they're, thinking more about their weight sometimes than they may think about their sugars, and then some people vice versa, just like I am. I want to think about my, sugars more than I think about my weight. I got to do what I got to do when it comes to my sugars. That's more important. My high blood pressure, my kidney disease, all those things, making sure those kidneys right, making sure that pressure's right, making sure, my blood sugars are stable. That's more important to me than, and my cholesterol more than the weight. So that's why, I chose to go ahead and go back down on that medication so that I can make sure that all that is right. I also think about people that are having issues, they may be, feeling fatigue, about to pass out, have passed out, things like that. Could it be your blood sugars going low and you're not a diabetic? Could you be a diabetic and you're not ever checking your blood sugars with that glucose monitor or the CGM? You know, could it be that, you're not checking your blood pressure like you should be, every so often, especially if you have hypertension? But those, even if you don't have hypertension, meaning high blood pressure, you could be having blood sugar lows, blood pressure lows, and you may need to go down on the medication. Something to think about. You know. Um, so Mia says, I was eating protein, added processed foods, so not ultra processed, but still could do better. Gotcha. I gotcha. Yep. And at some point, you probably was eating a lot of ultra processed foods, and then now you're eating, better, just the regular processed foods or the minimum processed foods. Then you get to whole processed foods, or you may say, okay, well, I kind of let go of the ultra processed. Now I'm just eating processed, but I am eating some whole foods too. That's going, you're getting better. You on that road to better, you know. Um, Everybody can't just do it like this. Boom, I'm done. Okay, I'm done. I'm not gonna eat no more processed food. It's gonna be all whole foods for me. You know, everybody can't do that. And I don't like trip about people that when they say, hey, I don't eat all that stuff. I don't eat all that, fruitful food or all the, all the organic foods or all the clean foods and all this other stuff. I understand. But what my goal is to try to get to maybe an 80-20. So how meats are, 80% meat, beef, say beef, and then 20% fat. So I try to get, I want to be like 80%, eating clean foods or whole foods, and then 20% where I can indulge and have a good time and eat my little cake and have my cake and eat it too. I want to do all that. So um yeah, let me see. All right. Okay, so Felicia says I just got home. Thank goodness you're still on. Yes, and I need to hurry up and get off. Hey, twin. Latera says, congratulations on being able to stop smoking. God is good. Yes, 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 yes. We're happy for you again, Mia. Yes. Twin. All right, Grant says, Dexcom has the option to calibrate where Libre doesn't. I have both on right now and plan on doing a finger prick in a few days to see which one is more accurate for sure. Okay, good, 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 Grant. So, Grant and I, we're planning to get together in February to have a conversation with you all. The sugar talk. Mm-hmm. Miss Felicia Marie B. Suggested that to us, and we thought it was going to be a good thing to do. So yeah, we're going to get together and have this conversation with y'all. We're going to talk about it next week to kind of see how we want to approach it, and then we'll come back sometime in February. We'll of course come back and let you all know, before we do it. But yeah, we want to talk it out, and maybe he will, let us know during the sugar talk about the accuracy of these CGMs that they say is, and that I know for sure does, did me wonders. Felicia says my mom had a Dexcom and the sensor would always malfunction and it was a pain to replace. It was, when I say that thing was in my arm, I'm like, OMG. Like sometimes I would be trying to pull the thing off and it takes like some force to pull it off. Yeah. Especially when I like when I had to get an MRI for something, honey. I mean, I'm like, I had to pull that thing, hard trying to get it off. But sometimes, it comes off real easy because I've had twice where that thing came off too soon. It just popped off. Like if you rub against a chair wrong and it hit that little area, it hit that little area right here. Like I mean, like having it maybe right here, and it clip it came off. So what I had to start doing is putting like a little, something right above on top of it. So like I used to use like a little clear tape thing that they have for them, and I'll put that on top of it. I forgot what they call them. But yeah, I would put that right on top so that it won't move, So then of course it's kind of like stuck on there because I got it on there tight, especially because I was going out walking a lot. I didn't want it, the all the sweat from me walking and stuff and the heat from the sun to start messing it up and everything, and then it wound up, easily to fall off. So I always make sure I put some on top of it after that. Um, after it wound up coming off one day, and I'm like, why did this thing come off? But I was able to call the company, and they, sent a new one to me. So yeah, just like with the GLP-1s, something happens to your, it malfunctions when you're trying to use it. Guess what? You can call Lily if you're on Zepbound or you're on Manjaro, and then they'll ask you some questions or whatever, and then they more than likely will send you a replacement. Felicia said, "Oh, I don't read that." All right, Grant says, I'm leaning toward the Libre being better so far. Okay, gotcha. Yep, I did like the Libre. So like I said, I may decide to go ahead on and try that Libre 3 Plus. We shall see. We shall see. Stay tuned. Hugs for Mia's lungs. Yes, yes, yes. Felicia says, I care deeply for all my Manjaro diabetic friends. Yes. And we care deeply for you too, sweetheart. Yes, yes. And we're happy for you that you were able to get your, health under control, because I know that your family, a lot of people in your family have diabetes, been diagnosed with diabetes. And you, my love, have not, been diagnosed with that, awful disease. So I'm happy about that for you, that God saved you from it. All right. Grant's giving a heart. Thanks, Latera. Wait as me says, or Mia. Latera says, you are very welcome, sweetheart. All right. Mia says, definitely evolution. Gotta develop a taste for something different. It all takes progression and desire to be different. Yes. You definitely have to have that desire. You definitely, it is definitely a journey. When we talk about journey, let's look up the word journey. Let's look up the word journey. Stop. Get that deaf. Journey, an act of traveling from one place to another. Okay? Traveling somewhere. True meaning of journey, an expression of awe or reflection on a significant experience, a trip, or life. Well, that's when they say, what a journey. An expression, and that's how we feel. What a journey that we've had, that we're having right now. So that's an expression of awe or reflection on a significant experience, trip, or life path, um, highlighting that it was a long, eventful, or transformational, transformative, whichever. Not just a simple trip, but a meaningful passage from one stage to another, like personal growth or overcoming challenges. That's what we're doing today, y'all. It emphasizes the process, difficulty, or memorable nature of the experience, whether physical travel or a methodical, was it metaphorical progression in life. Yes. So, and the synonym for it is a trip, a voyage, a trek, a tour, expedition, excursion, passage, pilgrimage, odyssey, and travel, all conveying movement from one place to another, often over a significant distance or with purpose. Okay? That's what we need to remember. It's going to take some time, y'all. It's going to take some time, and it's all right. We got time. God has given us the time. And as long as we still opening our eyes, we can do this. We still learn. We're ever learning. We're ever learning. Okay? But then when we learn this stuff, we got to make sure we're applying it too. It's not just about knowing it. Knowledge is power, but we definitely need to apply what we know, or there's no reason to even have learned it. Felicia says blood pressure lows is very real too on Zepbound. Topic for another day, though. Yes. Yeah, we'll have that topic for another day. Twin says, Twin says, your twin. Latera says, thank you. And we love you too, sweetheart. Sweet bee, honey bee. Yes, sugar talk. All right. Mia says, I look forward to your collaboration on that talk. Yes. All right. Manjaro with Pam. How are you doing, Pammy? Hi, friends. Came in late. Work an easy class to sub after work. Did a little extra arm weights, elliptical, etc. I guess. Look, because I don't think, is it still in? Nope. Oh, here it is. Red light on my face and head. Got my jammies on and pulled up the blankets. I know that's right. Go on, get cozy, girl. Go on, get cozy. And thanks for coming in. All right. So, yes. Okay. So, let's see what we're saying. Hi, everyone, she says. Pammy, queen of multitasking. She is. And I love her voice. Her voice is so soft and, just calming. hmm Pam says, today in my Frenchman class, our lesson was diabetes. Okay. So look at you learning something, to help you, take care of yourself better. Mia says, did you guys see the breaking news that the FDA approved the quick pens for USA? No, I ain't see that. I haven't even been on barely been on, TV today. Coming to Lily Direct soon. I want one because we decide the dose by the clicks, like our UK friends. I remember those, quick pens. That's how my insulin came. I don't know if they call them quick pens, but that's how my pens were. Um, you know, you could dial it up, and I had to put like a little needle on the bottom of it, and then I dialed the number up to where they told me to go, and then boop, you know, injected that insulin in my belly. We are moving with purpose, honey. Yes, with purpose. Yes, yes, yes. All right. Pammy says, I always have too many family members to draw from examples and how some didn't take care of themselves. Sadly, when I ask them raise hand if they know someone in their family with diabetes, it's I saw the headline. No, it's what? It's about 40%. Wow. 40% of her students knew somebody that had diabetes. About 40% of her students. So this diabetes conversation must be had. Okay. We need to do more of it. So people, whether you have diabetes or not, you can learn more about it. It's always better to know about it, so that you can be proactive. Okay. So that you can hopefully not ever get it, that you hopefully will never get it, especially when if you have a family history of diabetes, you definitely have to be careful because you're more susceptible to get it. So it's good to know these things. All right, I seen that, Mia, very excited. Okay, okay. Holding out on me, Pookie Pie. Not for real. We had talked all day. Oh my goodness, it's been a couple minutes. All right, Pammy says, I got read it. No, I didn't read it. No. Pammy says, I saw the headlines, Mill, but I hadn't read the details. Okay, we got to check that out. We got to check that out. Latera says, I didn't see it, Mia, but that is going to be a beautiful blessing for sure. Yes, Latera. Hoping that people use it with wisdom, though. Hopefully, the people use it with wisdom. Whoever gets it, hopefully they use it with wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, which is what the Bible tells us to have. Wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. Okay, and not just for weight loss only, or those things. All right. Well, 8 a.m. comes early. It does. It does. Already one. I'm here. Y'all have a great night. Hello. I'm talking about hello. Bye-bye, Grant. Hello and bye. Good night, Grant. All right. So Latera says, have a great evening, everyone. Have to go down. Have to go now. Have to get my husband's breakfast ready. All right, Latera. Good night. All right. 40% is a lot. It is. That's crazy. But true. Mill says, I have 2 boxes of 10 pens. I need 5 milligram pens to go with, but a quick pen would solve my issues because they are supposed to be taken away the reorder within 45 days for cheapest price on Lily Direct. Let me look. Let me comprehend that again. Yep. Okay. Gotcha. Okay. I got you. Mia. All right. So rest well, Grant, and good night, Latera. And Pammy says, and these high school ninth graders have told me even their dads have diabetes, not just the grandparents. Right. Right. Yep. It don't matter how old you get, you can get diabetes. Children oftentimes when they, are diagnosed with diabetes, is that type 1 diabetes. And then they have to live the rest of their life with it, you know. Um, trying to make sure, their numbers are where they're supposed to be. But normally, with type 2 diabetes, kind of, grow once as you get older or whatever, and sometimes different things may make you develop type 2 diabetes. So yes, but anyway, y'all, I'm gonna head out now. If all hearts and minds are clear, we will reconvene tomorrow. I don't think Pam's heart or mind is clear yet. Okay, Pammy said, right. I told them how I had the family genetics for type 2 diabetes and explained how I was on the high end of pre-diabetic. She's on the high end of pre-diabetes now, I'm assuming she's saying. Yes. Have a good night, Grant, she says. And then Emil says, to purchase a quick pen of 15 milligram doses, I could break it down to give myself the extra 5 milligrams. I got you. I got you. Okay. Yep, yep, yep. So, y'all, I am going to say good night because, again, it is 1:13 here. Grant and I on the East Coast. So, I will talk to you all tomorrow. We'll do it again with another subject. Let me see what the subject is going to be tomorrow. Just a moment. Just one moment. Give you a little sneak peek of the subject. I'm looking for it now. Just let's see. So I've chosen the subject tomorrow as inflammation and weight loss, the hidden reason the scale won't move. Hmm. Let's see what we're going to talk about. Get ready, get ready, get ready. Yes. All right. My phone's dead, by the way. Okay. Curious with Kim. Yes, yes. So, y'all, please be back here with me tomorrow. I greatly appreciate it. It is Friday night. Is anybody coming on tomorrow that I may have missed today because I was not on, you know, YouTube that much today? Why scale won't move? Yep. Why scale won't move? The reasons why it could be why it won't move. Yep. That's what we're gonna talk about. All right. Um, I would see y'all tomorrow. Definitely. Well, yeah. Y'all will see me tomorrow. Y'all will see me again tomorrow. So y'all have a great night. Love y'all. Good night, sweetheart. Peace. You too, Pammy. Okay, gotcha. Okay. Okay. Okay, Mia. All right. Thank you. Have a good one. Bye bye.